Kia ora and welcome to Mana Talanoa. I'm Andre Whitaker and this is our Wahine Tour Woman in Sport segment. And it's my pleasure to welcome Vesna Radonich, who's not only a national but a world champion title holder and gold medal winner in the sport of Waka. So we'll be talking about Waka for this segment. So tēnā koe Vesna, nā mihi nui ki a koe, tēnei kōrero. Kia ora.
Kia ora, dobrodošli, ko Vesna Inua, ko Pukeroa te maunga, ko Waikato te awa, ko Tainui te waka, ko Maniapoto te iwi, ko Daphne te mama, ko Mladen te papa, puno luba pulabi, dobrodošli, fala puno. So kia ora, dobrodošli, I just give you a little bit of a hello from my Māori and my Croatian background.
Well, that's fascinating, you know, looking at your name, obviously Vesna Radonich, and your Croatian background and also your Māori whakapapa. So look, let's start there. It'd be fantastic to hear about your whakapapa and your heritage.
Yeah, so I've got two cultures. My dad is Croatian. He arrived here when he was 17 years old to make New Zealand home. And my mum, she is part Māori. Her mum is of the Nikora line from Hangatiki way down in a little marae called Te Tukunui a Noho, which is linked to Kapatui. Really grateful to have those two cultures because their number one value is family. So family's always been number one to me in anything I do. Also grateful to two cultures. Croatians are very driven and headstrong and determination, which give me a great skill in my sport. And then the Māoris are about the connection, the spirituality side, the knowing of who you are and taking time to breathe and reflect. So one pulling the other, but they're also affirming each other and supporting each other in the journey. So really grateful to have those two cultures.
In terms of te reo then, the language, both Māori and Croatian, was that something that was alive in your home?
Yes, from an early age, Mum would te reo at home with us. She was shy with it because she really wanted their language to be known in our lives. Because we live in New Zealand, we're able to embrace being Māori with living here, whereas Croatia it wasn't available as much. So we would do Croatian dancing. I even learnt the Croatian instrument, which they call a tambarinta, which is like a little banjo, a little mandolin. And then we also did drama. We also joined at school the local Māori singing group or kapahaka. Back then it was still growing, it wasn't too big, but Mum always made sure that we made a journey home to Kapatui Marae, made sure that we knew who our nannies, our great nannies and all our whakapapa were. I didn't really take it on board much when I was young. I was just like, oh cool, I got more cousins to play with. It wasn't until my later years in my 30s and moving here to Gisborne and Tairāwhiti that I really learned how important it is to know who your lines and who your connections are. And I really wanted to spend a lot more time in my 30s understanding it. I even made a trip back to Croatia in about 2002 and that to learn again more about my Croatian side, because your parents give you so much, but when you're there and you're around the people and you live and you breathe it, you take it in more because it just is and about knowing who your family is, but who they are as people, what makes them great, what makes them such the family that you have. And it can be the way that they set up their tables, it can be the way that they arrange their house, how they prepare their food, what makes them happy, what songs are sung from that area. So it was about living and breathing it, not just speaking it.
Yeah, look, and fantastic to see the, as you're talking, I'm just picking up some of the similarities between Māori, Pasifika culture and Croatian, like family for one thing, getting together, food rituals are really important as well. So great that you've had that journey and that's helped, as you said, strengthen you on your journey into Waka. So let's go there. In terms of Waka, what what drove you to the sport? What was the thing that got you involved with waka ama?
I used to do dragon boating at school, and I moved to Sydney, Australia in my 20s because I wanted to live life and experience what the world has out there, and carried on dragon boating there. And a friend of mine there said, oh, hey, come and check out the sport outriggers. And I was like, oh, what's that? So I thought, okay, give it a go. So I headed out to Manly in Sydney, and it was a long vessel where you can put 6 people in it, and then it had a kiato and a balancing agent they called an amma, and I was like, oh, this looks really cool. And I said, oh, I can't wear my hearing aids on the water, I'm partially deaf, so I won't be able to hear on the boat. And the coach said, no problem, we'll make you the caller. I'm like, yeah, cool, what did the caller do? And she's like, okay, so what we do is we paddle for about 12 strokes, and then the caller calls a hut, and that's a prompt for us to all change sides. So we alternate sides. So I was like, oh, sweet, I can do that. I can count and change. And I fell in love with it because she didn't have my hearing disability be a disadvantage. Yeah. She said, how can we make it work? The other reason I really liked it is because this lady was a world champion kayaker. She'd just come off the Olympics gold and had won gold. She just taught, how can I explain? She really made me feel human. She really valued everybody. She didn't put people up on a pedestal. She treated all people equal. And that was the other reason I really wanted to get into the sport, because I felt welcomed. It didn't matter what my age, my disability, my size or my shape was. It was about how can you make it work. And that's been one of the biggest driving forces I do in the sport now, is about, it doesn't matter what you have, it's about how can we make it work for you.
Yeah, it's a very inclusive sport, and we see that like at the sprint nationals for waka ama, where there are participants who have disabilities, and they have a race and a segment just for them. So we really see that across the sport. But you mentioned dragon boating, and a lot of waka paddlers come over, and they're probably introduced from dragon boating. What would you say would be some of the similarities to the sport, and then some of the things that are probably a lot different if you were talking about dragon boating versus waka ama outrigger canoe racing?
A lot of dragon boaters come over to outriggers or waka ama as they are coming off a sprint season in dragon boating, and they're moving to a sprint season in waka ama. So it almost gives them that value add, that they've got that speed component embedded in their bodies. In dragon boating, you all have to be exactly sync and go enter in and enter out at the same time. With waka ama, there's a bit more gap, so people sometimes tend to do their own sort of thing through the movement of the stroke, whereas dragon boating, you have to get it immaculately right, and they bring that skill across into waka ama. Like if you look at the rowers, they're all exactly the same, entering in at exactly the same time, exiting out at exactly the same time. And they bring those skills into waka ama, which helps them, especially in the sprints, because in the sprints you can't afford to make a mistake. That can cost a difference between a gold can be 1.03 milliseconds. And that's what it was like for me in 2009 when I won the Open Women's. I only won it by a millisecond difference. So that's where the dragon boating skill complements them over to the waka amas in the sprint side.
Yeah, and I can see how, right down to the millisecond timing, as you're saying, right up to the point when you enter and exit the water, being in or out, and can make a huge difference. So just on the sport of waka ama, look, I just had a quick look at the stats. There's over 5,500 people participating in the sport, I believe, and it's relatively new, if you like, in New Zealand, in that Matahi Brightwell, brought the sport here back in the early 80s, so it's just not quite 40 years old. But let's just have a quick talk about the sport of waka ama. It's across the country. There are many clubs, and the club that you're involved with, how does that look and feel, that the numbers there and the participants?
So I'm based down in Gisborne in Tairāwhiti, And like, fortunately for me, it's also where Matahi Brightwell is from, who is the founder of the sport, who brought it to New Zealand. They have a very strong thriving for the youth, and being a water-bounded town, we don't have to travel so far to get down into Waka. So they've been able to get out and train a lot. We don't have the travel barrier. There's also the strong community bond about making it work for everybody. If someone doesn't have a paddle, someone else will have one there to borrow. Someone can't get there, we'll get them there. So the community really gets behind the sport and encourages participation. And it's something for them to do in the summer holidays, because the New Zealand Sprint Championship, they held in the third week of January. And so over the summer holidays, these kids as young as 6 years old are down on the river learning about teamwork, learning about technique, learning how to be fit. And it's giving them something to do over the summertime. You can have your little sister, your auntie, your uncle, your koro, everybody can participate. Some people will go down at 8 a.m. in the morning and stay there till 5 in the afternoon by the time all their kids get through. Yeah, it's real strong bond around encouraging everyone to be involved in the sport, and how can we make it work.
Yeah, well, you mentioned the really good points there, like the national sprints in January. I think there were around 15,000 people over 6 days at the tournament, taking part in and watching the races as well. And I think that's a great thing about the sport, as you mentioned, from mokapuna right through to grandparents, not only watching, but actually taking part in the sport. And I can't think of many other sports in New Zealand where you'd see that. And also the real strong ho order focus of that particular event. You know, it's healthy food, you know, no smoking, and everyone there works hard and trains hard. So it'd be good to talk about the training in Wakaama and the sort of training that you do and have been doing, because you got all the way to the top and won those titles and teams individually. So let's talk about the type of training that you would be doing when you're wanting to be in that gold medal contention as a paddler.
So it's really specific, as in I know what I'm doing for each of my trainings. I don't just rock up and go, oh yeah, I think I'll head out and do this. So it's really specific. It is a focus, no more than 2 focuses, because you want to keep it simple. One might be interval training, which is pushing the heart rate, letting it recover, push it up, let it recover. One might be over a distance. One might be working on stroke rate, so that's how many strokes per minute. One might be focused on the turn component of the racing. So you've got to make sure that you have a specific goal or a training program, because if you just turn up, how do you know you're going to achieve your goal? Really important also to balance everything. So Wakaama is like a form of cardio. So that keeps you cardio fit. And cardio eats your muscles. So how are you going to replace the muscles that get eaten from the cardio? So one players, they bungees at the front of the canoe, they create resistance, but you need more. You need to strengthen those muscles that you don't use in paddling to support the big ones when they get tired. So I do a lot of land-based training, and that can be specific movements for paddling. Like I just said, it's also about strengthening those muscles that you don't use so much in paddling. But it's also about balancing rather than just paddle all the time. You need that balance of land stuff as well, and balancing your family and your work. So that's why it's important to have a training program, so that you can make plans and talk to your whānau and say, hey, this is our training, we've got the kids, we've got study, we've got work, Dad's got longer hours, how can we make it work? And it's going to be for this amount of time. It's also about making sure you get the right rest, making sure you're eating well too, and just keeping the hydration up. Balance is important. You can be fit as a fiddle, you can eat super well, but if your home life and things aren't quite balanced with your relationships with yourself and with others, that can impact on how quickly you progress forward. You'll still progress forward as an athlete, but you could progress forward more if you keep everything balanced as well. And that means you sometimes have to make some choices around the relationship and the people that you associate with, because you need this all to be good, because you've only got 30 seconds, even though the race might be a 500-metre sprint. You've only really got that first 30 seconds to set yourself up, or else you're going to be chasing your tail. So it's really important that everything that you do prior to the event is about getting you the best possible result, and love what you do. If you're struggling with it and it's playing mind games on you, sometimes you just need to take a bit of a breather, and it doesn't make you weak. It makes you smart. Go, no, I need to step aside, have a break, breathe. How's everything else going around? How is my family? How is me? Why is this happening? And sometimes it's just a build-up, tiredness, but it's about taking that time to balance it and then get back on. And you don't go backwards. If anything, you'll go more forward, because if you don't deal with it, you're just going to keep hitting a wall, and you don't want to hit that wall on the day.
Yeah, well, and in terms of, you mentioned support and having the, I guess, the right people around you. Who have been some of the, I guess, mentors or coaching support people that have helped you along your journey to being a gold medal winner in the sport?
Well, one of the first ones was Shelley Oates Wilding. She was my coach who introduced me to the sport of Waka or outriggers over there. And then after that, it would have been Howard Highland. He's originally from Whakatane, but he had a success also in dragon boating. And in 2008, he coached the J19s, who got a clean sweep of gold and beat all the Tahitians. So that is a big success, because the Tahitians are very good at the sport. They are well-known world champions. So I wanted to be the New Zealand champ. So I went on to Howard, and he taught me a lot. Then I moved to Tahiti because I got the national title, but I wanted the world title. And to be the best, you've got to surround yourself with the best. And fortunately for me, my best friend, Marakura Bright Rail, was moving over at the same time. And he's the son of Matahi Bright Rail, the founder of the sport. And I turned to him for a bit of guidance because of his English speaking, and turned to the Tahitians for learning. And they taught me the most important, the final aspect of the sport, which was about the feeling. I'd gone from just muscling it, being super fit, strong and determined, but I hadn't connected. I didn't make that connection. I hadn't feel the water. I hadn't felt my ancestors as I pulled that paddle through. And that was the biggest thing that I needed, that it took me almost 15 years to get there, but it was worth it. And so they've been a big influence. There are so many in New Zealand. Getting the call to go and paddle for a team called Kairi Toa, based in Gibbon with Kiwi Campbell, that was a big thing for me as well. 8 years with them, and we've continually won national titles, really set the benchmark there. My mum, she's been a big influence. I'm absolutely grateful that I was able to become a world champion before she passed away, because she was probably one of the greatest supporters of me with the sport, because Māori have that connection, they understand. My dad being Croatian, he couldn't understand why I did the sport, and just said, why do you do it? It has no money in it, whereas Mum was absolutely supportive. So she's been a big influencer. Funnily enough, when I won the world title and I took Dad and Mum to the sports award, Māori Sports Award, Dad changed his perception of what he thought of the sport, because he just didn't realise being a successful athlete didn't just in Waka didn't just mean you're in Waka. You get to be around so many other great athletes. So that made him really proud and changed his perception. Who else influences me? My late Nana, now my late Mum. A few of the people that have passed on. They come and visit. They've been there with me when I've won world titles as well. So they were my influences as well. Don't have to live, you can be there. Yeah.
Look, you mentioned being in Tahiti. One of the things you learned was about flow and feeling. So you could have all the fitness and muscle, and but actually it's about the connection. So it'd be good to just have a kōrero around what we might be talking about there with connection. It's a wairua, it's a Māori connection, and I know it's something we talked about before we come online a bit earlier. Is how do you make that part of your training or part of your day or the way you are, if you're forming that connection between tikanga, kaupapa Māori, and then bringing that into sport so that actually it helps you perform and win?
And it's because it's a part of who we are. The voyage of Waka is how we are where we are today. Our people travelled many islands, many thousands of kilometres. They had to learn how to feel what was happening in the water. They had to learn to feel, smell the ears, look at the environment, see what's happening with the animals around them, use those factors to help direct them to where they needed to go. So I could have had a choice. I could have just hopped in the waka and went, okay, I'm going from here to there and I'm going to do whatever it takes. Or I can hop in the waka, smell, breathe, take in everything around, put my hand in the water, feel what's happening. As I go to pull my paddle now, I'm feeling every part of that pull. It's not just about placing it and pulling. It's about what's happening underneath there that's going to help you get from A to B. You might place it here, and then you'll find you'll have to go a little bit this way, a little bit that way, and it's about what's happening underneath here that's going to help you to get forward. It's about breathing and trusting everything and bringing your breathing down to here, because when you breathe from here you're more of a relaxed paddler. If you breathe from up here you're real tense, you can't relax. You need to be able to breathe from down here. Also down here is where you can generate the biggest amount of power that you have. You have your quads, they're huge, large leg muscles. You have your calf muscles, which handle 3 times its body weight. You need to make sure that you're grounded in your waka and calm for you to be able to move where you need to go. As per your ancestors, they didn't hop on the waka and get tense and just go, 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 go. They relax, they breathe, they take in everything around, they go with it.
Yeah, I think that's a fantastic insight. When we look at today, it's very common to hear the word well-being, wellness, spirituality, meditation bandied about, really. And actually, this has been a practice of Polynesian people for centuries that they've been using to get around, to survive, to get from island to island, to get across the oceans. And I think you've articulated and explained that really beautifully. It's there's slowing down the breath, there's the feeling and the connection. It's a huge part of who we are and what we do now. So that's obviously helped you become a champion, a world champion in the sport, and you've been a leader and part of winning teams. Looking at women in the sport of wakaama, I noticed that over half of the participants in the sport in Aotearoa are women. And so women lead taking part in the sport versus men. So for you as a wahine toa paddler, in terms of leadership lessons that you have come across getting to the top and being a champion, what would be some of the things you would talk about that are important in terms of leadership for wahine in sport? And maybe what are some of the things we need to see more of for wahine toa in sport and in wakaama?
I think it's women are shy, but men are shy too. And to be a leader, we need to practice what we talk, to teach us all to treat all people as human beings. It doesn't matter how many gold medals you've got. Everyone's got a heart, everyone has feelings, and it's about creating a positive experience of wakaama to a person and allowing their strengths to bring out a great paddler that they can be. It's not about saying what they don't have, it's about saying what do you have. And some of them are going to give all they can and that's where they will be. And some will give more and are able to perform a bit more. But it's not always about trying to be better than someone else. It's about being the best that you can, and that's good enough. We have so many pressures to be a certain way sometimes, and I think we need to let go of those pressures, not be driven so much by what we see visually. It's about trusting ourselves and trusting our instinct and trusting that we are good people. And yes, sometimes there are some influences that may not serve a positive influence to you, but you've got to step aside, and you can choose to take that on board or you can choose not to, but you can also choose to be a person that says, is that okay or is it not? Because one of my things is I have mental health, and so I used to be quite sensitive to things that people said, and I've really had to use Waka ama to help me heal my mental health, to help me cope, to breathe, to build strength in myself that I can do things, that people with hearing impairment aren't really dumb and stupid, that sometimes some of my experiences aren't because I'm weak and dumb, it's because I just don't understand, and not to take those words so much on board and to treat people more with dignity. I think that's a big thing that is becoming really trendy, is to really treat people equally, treat everyone as a human being.
Fantastic. And well, I think too, look, when you're in a waka and you're doing a long distance event, you need your team to be comfortable with each other. That you need to be able to know that you've got each other's back. And I think the type of training and really the spiritual side of involvement in sport helps build that. And so great to have you talk about that. In terms of what's next for you with Waka, so you're still competing. You've got, I know we've got COVID at the moment. Obviously, that's caused a lot of events to be postponed or cancelled. What's for you now in terms of Waka event-wise and your training? And then I also understand you're a coach as well in the sport.
Well, we've got a lovely partner and 2 beautiful babies. One's almost 2, one's 6. So they're kind of my priority at the moment. And I built the sport up around them. They're also keen water enthusiasts. My son, he's comfortable and enjoys paddling on a one-man. My baby loves going to Waka, and my partner also comes from Waka ama background. So I put them first, and yes, I have come back to the sport, managed to get myself back up in the top spot of our paddlers, which has been really rewarding. But if anything, my main focus has been around giving back to others and encouraging a positive culture in the sport, encouraging people to look deep for their strengths, that they all have the opportunity to be a fantastic paddler. I've been sharing a lot of my paddling tips of what's helped me to get where I have got to. I've started up a business, International Paddling Coach, offer 30-day free paddle challenges. I do coaching online, coaching face-to-face, run workshops, and I also have memberships with a lot of what I call Waka Fit members. So that's it. And I also have recently been involved in a sport called Crossfit. Because of COVID, we were a bit restricted to moving. So I ran 30-day challenges based off land, but also took up the sport of CrossFit. The Worlds were meant to happen in August this year, but due to COVID, they were cancelled. So late August, so late July, I got a message that I've now qualified to go to the New Zealand CrossFit Championship, which has been a godsend because I haven't been able to get out on the water as much, and I've had to find another vehicle to keep me going. That is now complementing me with my Waka ama, that I've added a lot of strength and conditioning more into my training program, because the style of CrossFit is evolving to be more about technique than strength. And that is what I encourage a lot in paddling. It's about getting your technique, engaging the muscles the best effective way to pull the most effective stroke. And that's what a lot of the CrossFit gyms are doing nowadays, is a lot around technique and then building strength. So I've combined the two together, and it's certainly helping a lot of the paddlers that I'm working with. I run live workouts once a week for our members, and I'm really a strong believer of finding that balance of your family, of your mahi, of your sport, and yourself. You've got to really balance. And sometimes that might mean, hey, I get up at 4:30 in the morning. That's normal. That first 30 minutes is the best 30 minutes of my day. I get to sit there and really appreciate everything that I have. It takes time to do it, but I think it's important, rather than just get up for your day and go, just take that time to breathe and look back at the last 24 hours and just think, wow, this is a great life you really do have. And then think about what you've got ahead of you and appreciate it, and know that you've chosen that journey and to embrace it. Like, yeah, that's about what I'm doing at the moment.
Well, that's fabulous, and particularly the CrossFit, and so that now means all the other Waka people that watch this will be taking up CrossFit, and we're going to have fit, awesome athletes and participants. Not that we don't already, but I think it's wonderful that you're doing that. Vesna, I just really want to acknowledge and thank you for your time on this Mana Talanoa Wahine tour segment, sharing your family heritage, your whakapapa, about your journey to be a champion and to winning those medals and titles, but also wonderful that, as you've talked about, it's not just about that, it's about connection with the environment, connection with people, and having a relationship with those people in the environment around you. And great to see that you're still maintaining the coaching. So we'll look out for your coaching segments. We can obviously Google and find your coaching workshops online. I think they'll be great for people to explore and find out how they might be able to take part in that. So yeah, once again, Vesna, ngā mihi nui ki a koe for your contribution to this segment, and thank you very much.
Thank you.